Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets News. Well, it was a pretty crazy day in our house yesterday, so if that does ever happen, I'll try to record these on a Monday for you guys. We do welcome over 1,000 new subscribers again this week. Some fantastic videos. So I'm going to talk about the importance of this mining update and what the big miners are doing and why in this episode. And I also gave you guys a bit of a sample of member video, the style of video that our members are really liking. So this is the exclusive content format that we're going to be doing more of. So if you like that or you want to check it out to see what our members get more of as well, that one is there for you. We passed 1 million plays on Apple Podcasts and reached number 13, which is the highest we've ever got. So thanks to everyone that's enjoying that format, particularly for the long interviews. I know plenty of you prefer them just as the podcasts. And with so many people ramping into the space at the moment, guys, please send them over to our Knowledge Center. It's all free. All the beginner stuff. We've got that predictive text. We're adding new units every single day. That's what my staff are there to do. They do a fantastic job. And we might even be introducing a few more exciting things, which I'll let you know more about in the coming days and weeks. But look, if you want to pause the screen, have a read through this. This is exciting for me for a couple of reasons, but more so because the demographic, getting people to come in with 35 years investing experience that are starting to get into crypto and take Bitcoin and Ethereum and even DeFi seriously, this just makes it absolutely all worth it. So look, pause the screen, have a read through that if you like. But without further ado, let's get into the local news, where our central bank faces a bit of a quandary. Now, they've promised to print a lot of money, but there hasn't really been that uptake like a lot of places really. But more so in Australia, and the Aussie dollar is getting stronger. So they've now doubled down and recommitted to another $100 billion. And I really think it is more to defend the currency that's getting stronger and stronger. So this is a $100 billion wake-up call. Now, Philip Lowe's come out there and he's saying to the government, you need to do more. This is the old, you, us versus them. It's your fiscal responsibility. No, it's your monetary responsibility. This is happening all over the planet. And Scott Morrison pushes back and says, we're not running a blank check budget. We can't just keep doing this, that, and the other and spending. And Philip Lowe's basically saying, well, if you don't, there's going to be hundreds of thousands of Aussies fall into poverty when, JobKeeper and JobSeeker end. And this ANU research is now backing that up. And Phil Lowe, he used to not cross this line, whereas now he is coming out and sort of saying these things, bold claims. I think that shows you that he sees the level of importance that maybe the government just aren't quite understanding. Now, like a lot of places, the solution in Australia is to build more houses. And in the Gold Coast, running out of land, so obviously we're down to building blocks on basketball-sized courts. And so, hey, it's better than nothing. The answer, everything can be solved by building more houses in Australia. The level of impact of these first home buyers being able to withdraw from their super. We've already seen 20% of people empty their super. Once again, we're seeing that this is possibly going to be brought in as new legislation. So this will almost be like a permanent first home builders or owners grant. So young people will be constantly draining all their super and retirement savings at the start of their careers. Why? Because housing is unaffordable. So once again, the government, there's pushing people elsewhere and creating problems elsewhere because we can never let the housing market go down. So apparently it's a seller's market now and houses have already hit their record highs. So you just think about that. Unemployment is higher than it's been in recent years. We've just gone through a global pandemic and a huge recession, the first one we've had in 30 years, but house values are at record highs. So that just tells you how much wrong there is in the system. Now, I love this story. This is a world first, an Aussie guy that's actually using crypto and DeFi lending to get around the bank and the refinancing woes. So for those of you that are familiar with crypto, you'll know that you can borrow against your coins or even get those stable coins. We're going to go into some of the more under-collateralized loans these days. So look, one by one, protocols are replacing a lot of the paperwork and the red tape and the banks, which is fantastic to see. So Australia's failing pension system, prepare to be publicly shamed. This is, I guess, another problem that all pensions around the world are facing, but Australia's more so because we're overexposed to the banks and property, just those usual things. So when push comes to shove and the headwinds come, our retirement savings is going to be in a lot of trouble. Maybe that's the reason why people are happy to drain them now, because they don't think there's going to be much there further on down the track. So the Banking Royal Commission, what have we learnt 2 years on? Something that Martin and I cover all the time. Guess what? Here we are. This is like literally every week. A big bank is back in the headlines. Westpac facing penalties from High Court. It rules that its superannuation advice overstepped the financial laws. So it's just this mistrust in media. News Corp have just declared their most profitable quarter in 7 years. Banks are making record profits, all in this current environment. And more people, I think, would be taken to the streets if they understood this. But there's no doubt that more and more people are going down the rabbit hole, waking up to this each and every day. So the office market has been battered, double-digit vacancies in the cities and CBDs. On the flip side of that, we're actually seeing e-commerce growth drive a lot of industrial property. So further out, the big sheds and warehouses, that is really good news. But the times are changing. The economy is changing. Local workers in Queensland are taking up these farm jobs. Some of these Queensland farmers are forced to pay higher wages because they can't get in all these travellers and whatnot anymore. I think this is all good, but this leads to inflation. One by one, as those supply chains and labour, it all changes, prices go up. Now, other things that we're going to have an abundant supply of because we're no longer exporting, like red wine, hopefully all those prices are going to plummet. Now, some would argue that they were overpriced to begin with. Is a $100 bottle of wine really that much better than a $20 bottle? You take away that kind of branding and marketing, and that's where, once again, that saying I love, water finds its level. When times are tough, we're going to really find out what we value and what certain things are really worth, what is most important to you. All right, so the battle with Google continues. Scott Morrison's saying, hey, he's more positive about it now. I'm not sure who we go to. There's been a few jokes going around about what search engines we'll use or if the Australian government are going to make one themselves. But this battle continues. I just can't wait to see how this plays out, because it's going to be absolute mayhem if we don't have some of these big tech giants in Australia at all. One of the businesses, and even, I guess, a little sector or subsector that's been created, birthed out of Australia, is this whole idea of Afterpay. Now, I think it's because we're so obsessed with debt, and we've already got record household debt and credit cards. Only Australians could think of, what's another way that we can pay later? And now we've got a lot of copycats as well. So these style of businesses are moving into the US and the UK, but they've been quicker to crack down on them. So I think they are going to have a bit of a tough time expanding, and banks and regulators, lobbyists, they're starting to step on some toes in this rising unemployment economy. It's targeted that demographic a little bit more, which isn't a good thing. So these businesses that have been absolutely booming, again, even in the crypto market, there's loans with far lower interest rates than credit cards. So look, I'm not bullish on this sector long term at all. China have blocked the imports of lobster and plenty of other things. So we've now got this massive abundance of seafood. Some of the things that I think we should be doing, building more and more of these renewables. I love the fact that Australia is being a world leader in trying to build these big batteries, and battery tech's getting better and better. I love the irony that it's also being built on this old coal mining hub. Not that there was anything wrong with the coal, that's been a big part of our economy, but I think, we just need to modernise. An Australian firm signs a $300 million deal with the US government for these COVID tests. COVID tests haven't been that great. They haven't been that accurate. So this is the sort of business that I do like seeing. People that are in science and technology and healthcare, that's where you can sign those big deals from other countries globally and be competitive. Okay, so in China, we've had all these issues with Ant Financial, Alibaba, the Chinese banks, reining in these joint loans to consumers. So they've got a lot of cracks in their banking system. They've finally reached a bit of an agreement with these regulators for a massive overhaul. Still exploring the potential of an IPO, but that's all a little bit unclear after it got cancelled. And we're starting to see a lot of these defaults push up in these offshore loans. So very murky in that Chinese banking system. Alibaba is now looking to raise $5 billion in US dollar actually denominated bonds after their earnings beat. So isn't it great that if any company is like making money and beat earnings, then you can go out there and you can just borrow billions. I'd love to see this come to somehow, and it is, I guess, through DeFi, coming at the micro level, the household level. You can build, trust, reputation. Are you good at paying your bills on time? You're going to get extensions of credit through the world of crypto, which is awesome to see. South Korea planning a bit of a shock in housing supply boost to tame these prices. So a lot of cranes looking like the Australian skyline in our major cities. But when prices are just going nuts, you need to build more and more of these units. In Australia, we have got a lot of units still coming onto the market. It's probably the housing sector more so than units and flats and that have hit those record highs in Australia. Obviously, we still have plenty of vacancy apartments in the CBDs. COVID antibodies remain for 6 months after infection, the latest studies showed. So this isn't a permanent thing. It looks like it's going to be, a bit like the flu, new strains, variants every year. Sorry, I wanted to throw this high rise in there as well. So one of the signs that we have got in the past, throughout all of history really, is when we have these high-rise office buildings, it can be a sign of economies topping out. And times are changing in Japan, like a lot of places, as more and more people work from home. Now, this is all related to COVID and those changes there, but these skyscrapers, probably a thing of the past, as more and more people are just taking those changes and different ways of lifestyle, less stress. I think it's a trend that's going to continue. Some of these vaccines have been in the news, and we're starting to get that data that you don't get from the short-term studies. So Belgian regulators are now advising against the AstraZeneca giving it to over 55s at all. And this is why I don't blame people for being a little bit cautious as well when it comes to all these different tests. Hong Kong are threatening to bang down doors and force this wide COVID testing. Crazy to see how different countries are in respect to each other here. Now, finally in the US, we've got hospitalisations falling. That's what we wanted to see, but we're now hearing that these different variants are the concern. And if people get a little bit blasé about it all, we can see those big resurgences. And they tell me that the Super Bowl is a possible super spreader event. High-end liquor sales have jumped to a 40-year high through the pandemic as we're all in lockdown and drinking. But, on a serious note, it is that mental health side of things that a lot of people are drinking just to cope. Chicago schools are postponing that in-class because of the safety plans and fears there. In terms of the student debt in the US, we've got this $50,000 proposal for these forgiveness plans. 36 million borrowers will be debt-free. Now, I do think that this sort of thing, look, sooner or later in one way or another, you pay the price. But I would prefer young people getting a bit of a head start here rather than having these big tax breaks and write-offs at the other end of town for the wealthy to buy more and more properties, negatively gear, that type of thing. All right, so the Fed's monetary policy is pushing up these house prices. It's rampant. And you come out as a student in the US, you've got that big student debt. It's so hard, just like in Australia, to get on that property ladder, to find somewhere normal to live. We're starting to get a few metrics showing that there's a boom, a bit of an inflation. The bond market is creeping higher. Some of the different, the flattening of that yield curve and the spreads are starting to move. People are starting to price in inflation. We've got those private payrolls have rebounded. Even the services industry, service sector has started to gain steam. So that is good news in the US. Republicans pressed Biden to scale back this $1.9 trillion relief plan. This is 7 days ago. I'm sure that this is constantly being talked about every day. I'm not sure where we're at now, but I just don't like the hold-up. At least get something big into the pockets of those that need it. The US Treasury names their officials expected to lead this global tax crackdown, so I'm sure crypto will be dragged into this as well. but it's more the big techs that they need to focus on rather than, I think, the little guy and crypto avoiding tax. The Bank of England, so they're telling their banks to get ready for negative interest rates. Remember, it was just, I think, 6 months ago when they were saying how unlikely it is to see that in England. Now they're saying get ready for it. The UK are launching this formal bid to join this Trans-Pacific trading bloc. So when times get tough, the Brexit, you do trade with whoever you can. And that's what we've seen in a lot of other countries, but this is a challenge that's now facing some of the major economies, like Australia with China, like the UK with Brexit. Ryanair, a similar theme. It's the big travel companies, tourism, that are just facing these big hits. So $1 billion, they'll need that billion euros as a bailout from those central bankers, from the government, the big end of town. Rarely are they allowed to fail. So the US dollar has morphed into a bit of a risk-on currency because of the recent good data and how the other major economies are still looking like they're facing uncertainty. So that is going to see more and more money flow back into the US, flow back into the US stock market, likely. Now, Nevada are proposing this bill that allow big tech companies to create their own governments. This is nuts where it's all going. I mean, how many... We just spoke about tax avoidance and whatnot. Imagine if they can start to create their own governments and rules and laws, little havens. Maybe. The US Navy are testing 3D printers. This is a sector which I find so interesting. As the supply chain changes, at the moment we've got a global shortage of chips, microprocessors, microchips, which is really important for everyone around the world. So this is all going to change in the future, where you're going to be printing out all sorts of plastics, electronics, maybe even food in future, who knows, but definitely one that I find interesting. Blocked by Iran, so Signal app moves to decentralize their servers. This is a great example of what we've seen in the trading world, in Facebook with our data, now in these messaging services. The decentralized alternatives are going to get around all this different censorship that we're constantly facing. Speaking of these startups and these tech businesses, the market's pretty crowded at the moment in the US. We're seeing these blank checks, but eyeing off Asia as the next hunting ground for takeover and targets. Very different culture in Asia. They love the crypto speculation and ICOs. So I'm sure this SPAC blank check market is going to be red hot as they go into Asia as well. And it's just a sign of the global easy monetary policy. It's a bubble all over. So Goldman Sachs have warned what would happen if these short squeezes continue and the entire market would crash. So once again, they're not allowed to fail. It's almost like, hey, policymakers, do something because we're not allowed to lose. That would mean that everything collapses and we can't have that happening. Too big to fail. Robinhood, they just go to their stakeholders, shareholders, and raise another few $1 billion when looks like they could be in trouble liquidity-wise. This is the one that I think you guys are going to love. So Janet Yellen, she's meeting with all the regulators, the Fed, the SEC, the CFTC, about all the turmoil. So whether it's GameStop or the silver, they're all getting together and saying, what can we do about this? Now, just keep in mind that long list that I shared of Janet Yellen's speaking fees. So she recently accepted $800,000 to speak from Citadel, who own Robinhood. So this was an actual reporter here asking and putting it to them, saying, do you think that this is fair? And the answer is, no, she's an expert. She deserves that money. I'm sure she'll be unbiased. Is it any wonder that things are the way they are and it's so hard to change anything in Congress and, it just never gets all the way through because money talks, money runs the world. Carson Block suspects that the hedge funds, coordination in all these short squeezes. So we're now hearing these different theories because GameStop has absolutely plunged back down to earth. So, who was behind it all? People saying that the whole silver idea was just a bit of a distraction to get away from GameStop. Now, others saying that it wasn't. Always hard to coordinate via Reddit, I guess. But those markets have been wildly volatile lately. During the time, in general, we're still seeing that insiders are selling their stock at rates not seen since before the GFC. So these guys know what's up. Maybe they're driving some of these squeezes so that the big insiders can unload a lot of their stock. It's extended to commodities as well now. So we've got oil back towards $60 a barrel. Remember when it hovered around 30 or 40 for ages? Remember when it plunged to minus $30, minus 40 on some types of oil around this time last year? So oil sector's kind of been starved of capital. I touched on this last week, and that is the sort of thing that can keep oil prices higher for longer. Now, what happened with that silver market the other day? So, look, there were people going into the silver stocks. There were some going into the local bullion dealer and buying it. And we did hear that they ran out. I spoke to our friends at Ainsley, and they're saying that it's absolutely crazy what is going on at the moment. So, I guess you could say it did work. Last Sunday night, I shared with members, and I touched on this video, saying how because of the arbitrage opportunity, you can basically make the difference because these markets trade 24/7. And sure enough, that ended up being a nice 30% or more. SLV traded as high as $32, and we went into the weekend at 25. So this is an advantage of being able to trade 24 hours a day on FTX. So that link is down below. I'll talk about that more and more when those opportunities come up for members. But the SLV ETF did take in $944 million. So that is a record. Look, I'm not sure they broke the silver market. Silver's come back a lot in price, but I think it's probably sparked a slow burning fire and something that we've seen for ages. Maybe reigniting that Occupy Wall Street against the banks, and they're probably all going to join the crypto movement to some degree, I think. So I wanted to throw this one in here. FOMO sapien. Isn't it just funny how a few years ago people weren't interested in stocks? That was kind of boring, and now you've got these apps, and everyone wants to be a trader. One of the things what we haven't seen is successful short sellers. So a lot of these big short selling funds have just gone bust, and there's just none out there anymore, and they provide a really healthy service. So I know some people hate short sellers, but it is a market stabilizing mechanism. If you think the price should be lower, people should be able to push it down. It's not healthy to have everyone only be able to buy. And then these brokers shut down the trading app when too many people are doing one thing and not the other. It's just such a crony control market these days. And great that we're actually seeing short sellers still exposing some of these companies that are frauds. But if we have fewer and fewer of them, we are already getting more and more fraud in our markets, in our capital markets. So these are the stocks with the dividend yield above the 10-year Treasury yield, starting to creep up there as well. This is what drives more people into the stock market. If you can get a better yield, then you're going to go to the riskier thing. Look at these search terms for penny stocks. This is higher than back in 2008 or anything we've seen. The Wolf of Wall Street would be proud of this one, as people are, like I just said, everyone is just Googling penny stocks and speculating. This is where I think sooner or later, when everything turns and people run for safety, gold's going to play that really important role. And we're still seeing, physical gold ETF inflows have held really well. So gold probably setting up for its next leg sooner or later. Crazy statistics here when you look at things like the margin debt, when it's got this high in the past, dot-com bubble, GFC, here we are again. I honestly don't think markets are probably going to crash. I just think that they're going to print crazy amounts of money and create bigger inequality. So the answer is not will markets plummet. The answer is what will people do as the rich get bigger and bigger bailouts. I honestly think that's the way you need to start thinking about it. US dollar positions, we know that there's this enormous short position that's been building. The dollar just had its best week for months, and I think it's kind of possibly putting in a bottom that more people should be talking about in the crypto market. It would actually be bad for gold, probably, if that happens. Now, I have touched on the scenario where the US dollar and gold and even Bitcoin could go all up in tandem if enough of the other global currencies and economies are worse relative to those three things. So it's this global central bank effort that's kind of limiting the dollar's decline here as people are talking about this specter of currency wars. look, I love talking about that topic, that macro, and we will dive into that, particularly when we catch up with Raul soon. I know plenty of you are looking forward to that one. Misunderstood dynamics of negative yields. Hopefully by now you guys know that negative yields don't work like the textbooks and the economists tell us. They have the opposite effect, if anything. And that's why I think central banks are going so aggressive now, saying, well, that doesn't work. We've got to put the foot harder on the money printing because it's only really the two levers they have. And they're chasing that inflation. They're setting themselves up to say, see, we were successful when we printed so much money that inflation came, whereas that would have been a failure if that happened a few years back. I just wanted to show you again, FTX, they've got those stocks, even like a Wall Street bet index these days, Alibaba. So one by one, they're turning into the place you can go to trade for just about everything these days, which is fantastic. All right, I'll have a quick drink. So the traffic on crypto websites is going nuts. Look, a good thing, we know that retail are coming in, all those sites, people searching for certain terms, interest in the DeFis of the world. The volumes on all these DEXs, is fantastic to see. So I'm very, very excited. We've finally got that hard evidence that it's happening. And the user experience has improved, but high gas fees are really killing things at the moment for DeFi and for Ethereum. Things like MyEther wallet are now providing that access to DeFi and NFTs, and it's all integrated, and we've now got mobile. So it is kind of frustrating that retail are coming, and we've had 4 years to get things right. And it's probably going to be a bad user experience that could actually put an end to the run for DeFi. You're not going to get new retail investors come in and pay $100 to swap some coins over. So keep that in the back of your mind as well. An old project that was one of my favorites. The team are still working behind the scenes, and Horizon State have just put out an update, and it was very positive. The narrative for trust, decision making, COVID, it's all been positive for what they set out to do. So if you're still interested, check out that update. Visa may add cryptocurrencies. I've heard some rumors that Bitcoin Cash could play a pretty big role here. So love or hate it, they've chosen to be the peer-to-peer cash that they say was Satoshi's original vision. Now, Bitcoin Cash had a massive pump during the week. So whether or not that is going to play a special role, Bitcoin fees is still high. Bitcoin hasn't done much in 4 years other than SegWit as well. So, hey, possibly time for your Litecoins of the world, Doges. Look, anything that's an alternate currency for payments that has lower fees than Bitcoin and ETH, this is their time to shine. So watch for Visa to roll out something in that sector as well. Binance is suspending deposits in Nigeria. It's frustrating. Rumors again this week that India might be looking to crack down on crypto. So it's the time when these technologies could be improving these countries, and these old governments coming out and just red stamp, we're going to ban it. Banks, you can't work with it. Hey, it's happening in Australia, so what hope is there for some of these other countries? But whether or not regulators and banks allow us to work with them, stablecoins are going nuts, 1,000% year-on-year growth. $300 billion on-chain in just January. Look at the loans here. So Alpha, this is a relatively new project. They've already done $1 billion since they launched just a few months ago. They're consistently doing more than Aave, which is a fantastic leading project in this space. Have a look at some of these DeFi. Look, we talk about the blue chips like synthetics, but some of the total value locked in these is just compounding, and really, really great to see. Check out DeFi Pulse there. This is slowly not even slowly anymore, it's rapidly coming for the banks, but also the different DEXs as well. The volume that we're now seeing even on layer 2 DEXs, this is where we need it to be, guys, and you need to start using these. Loopring, $10 million in the last 24 hours. This is really, really awesome. So make sure you check out these projects. They're the ones that you might get yourself a lucky airdrop from. Get out there and use these protocols and get involved. Goldfinch is a cool little project that's doing loans without collateral. So they are extending credit to actual credit providers in some of these developing nations as well. So I love where this is all going. We're just solving all the problems. X token. I've spoken about this one in the past. They give you tokens that basically do the hard stuff for you. So the governance or the voting or having to claim. At the moment, you don't want to claim because gas fees are so high. So these X tokens have got all the features built into them. And so you would buy, the X inch token if you want the 1 inch token and the yield that it comes with. A project I might have to have on the channel because it is a very, very interesting concept. Starting to see tweets like this, people saying, I used to work at Goldman Sachs and I haven't even seen some of the things that are happening. In DeFi, it's remarkable. We wouldn't even thought about these in the traditional world, or it's not happening at all. So when people say, crypto is just doing what the banks are doing, but worse and more expensive, we've passed that now. So we've got these yield-bearing products, these stable coins, synthetic assets, yield curves. Awesome to see. Yearn Finance, so they had a little bit of a bug this week, but the big news was they voted to inflate the Wi-Fi supply. So you think, there was only 30,000 coins. You could have got them for free when it went to $30,000 or $50,000 a coin. We did that right up for members, I think, when it was a few $100s. But anyway, they've decided to mint 666 more. So this is in order to fund the development. Now, this is something that all projects have seen and it passed. So some people would say, why would they choose to do that? And this is the problem that Bitcoin might face in, let's say, 100 years when the mining reward runs out. You say, well, why would they ever mint more Bitcoin? But hey, does the good outweigh the evil? Do you need that money to pay miners or to keep development going for a project? So something to keep in mind. Uniswap, they are leading the way. DEX volumes have soared 50 billion in January. I just spoke about Wi-Fi, but with that little bug during the week, there's a little project called Rary Capital, which is another great way to get that yield. So this is now up 1,000% since we covered it in just November. That's amazing. So Rary Capital, look, Iron Finance and Yearn Finance, there's so many good ways to get yield out there these days, guys. But have a look around. There's still hidden gems, arbitrage opportunities, and these guys have got some very, very cool things coming again soon. Harvard are using Uniswap. It's starting to go mainstream. I did want to share this with you. So this is a Legends of Crypto series done by one of our members who's not even a full-time artist. He just started drawing a few of these and I said, yeah, I think they're really cool. I think they'll sell well. The NFT market's hot. So check that one out. This is the first of the series. Legends of Crypto, Hugh Karp. So this is his artwork that he's done himself, which I just... Yeah, look, I'm not an artist at all. I'm hopeless, but I thought this was really cool. Limited to editions, I think, of 100. So if you're out there, if you're an NFT, if you're a collector, let us know in the comments below what other ones that you would want to see drawn, because I know there's plenty of ideas, I'm sure. Rarible, the platform, has raised 1.7 million from some of these big names as well to build these marketplaces. So it's all the rage at the moment. I know there's plenty more NFT marketplaces coming online. Linkin Park joins the NFT mania. We've seen the UFC get on board. Logan Paul partners with Bondly Finance to bring NFTs to the Maverick metaverse. So these are people with millions and millions of followers. Something that we predicted months or years ago, that this is what the next big cycle would look like. Normal YouTubers, normal stations, normal influencers telling people to check out this crypto thing, and then the next wave comes in. Avagotchi, again, launching an NFT marketplace. I wanted to share this with you. So this was the first NFT I ever got, and I'd actually forgotten about it. So this was a gift from a friend, and it's called A Fellow of Infinite Jest by Ghost Shoes. So this was like 2 years ago, one of the first NFTs, one of the first super rares, before NFT was a buzzword or I knew what they were. And I remember him saying, hey, it could be worth something someday. So yeah, the NFT market sure got hot, but I was thinking, I wonder what it's worth. So I don't know if I'd ever sell it. It's got that sentimental value, but I think this is really cool. I might hang it in Decentraland. So we do have that launch party coming soon. But as I said here, you never know if there's some sort of NFT collector or whale out there. So I put, I think I put the old 100 ETH bid on there on super rare, but it's funny to see some of the crazy prices that these works are going for these days, and I guess you never know, guys. So get some stuff, whether it's sentimental value or just having a punt. I know Maddie's going to talk about this more in our next NFT update, but yeah, I forgot that I even had this, and yeah, it is really, I really think it's cool. All right, so Funfair up 180% this week. Blockchain-based gaming industry starting to see that not only are gaming and NFTs becoming popular, but they could solve some of the challenges. So remember Funfair have their Fate channels, like they call them. Axie Infinity have launched Ronin, so that's their sidechain solution, so they're avoiding the gas fees. Connext, Matic has been huge lately, getting involved in the gaming space and helping to solve the scaling issue. So wouldn't it be awesome if the little old gaming sector solved the woes of the billion-dollar DeFi sector? Now, speaking of coins and sectors that we love, Dogecoin, what do you say? Elon's been tweeting about this pretty much every night lately. We've got Stoop Dog getting involved, Gene Simmons, and Doge is pumped from around a cent. When I shared this with members, yeah, it was under a cent when I did that write-up for you guys saying, hey, I think Dogecoin is going to start to trend on social media. And bang, it has been an amazing run. And it's back up to, where are we at time of recording? Back up to 7 cents. So you never know, but I do think that it's not going to end well. Look, the XRP guys also had their kind of attempt at a bit of a pump and hold, as they call it, but unfortunately it gave pretty much it all back. But you've got to be really careful with these things. When even like GameStop, those guys meant well, but have a look, it is just absolutely plummeted back down to earth. So yeah, a lot of rage as Reddit crashed. I think as on the time it was meant to pump, it was actually crashing as well. So hey, we'd prefer organic growth. A great article by Mazzari. So this is all about FTX and the FTT token valuation. So this hit like $14 or $15. I think Sam's now worth like $10 billion. Really amazing story there. You guys know that I did the big write-up, and we went in on the ICO for this one at 80 cents. Some of you bought on day one at $1. So another example of over 1,000% returns for doing your research. They've also partnered up with Ren. So Ren, if you don't know, Republic Protocol, all about the dark pools. We know FTX and Alameda have gone after that kind of decentralized space, even though they're a centralized exchange. So they're trying to do, Serum, Solana, and now they're looking to incorporate dark pools. Makes me wonder, are they going to get some of those stocks, decentralized synthetic stocks, and trade them through dark pools? That sort of stuff can stop front running. So I am really interested to see where they go with this one. And obviously a bridge between Ethereum and other blockchains like Solana, never a bad thing. I wanted to throw this one in here as well. So a lot of the airdrops that you guys have been getting, if you've been using the protocols that we talk about on the channel, have a guess how much they would have been worth if you just held the top few. I think it was just the top 4. The voted answer was $1,500. The answer is actually $50,000. So if you had have held, the Uniswaps, was it Badger DAO? There's a few more that have even come out recently. It has been phenomenal. So when you say, it was a bit hard or gas was a bit expensive, look, I'll give you a tip. I think DYDX is going to be next. And I did a write-up for members the other day about that. But if you held on to these, $50,000 US plus you are sitting on now. If that's not an excuse to get involved, I don't know what is. SushiSwap are coming out with their minimum SushiSwap offering. So this is a way to crowdfund like an ICO. Legendary investor Mark Cuban got behind Sushi this week. So, hey, I love this one. You guys know how passionate I am about it. It keeps getting more and more social proof. Umbrella Network, they are also doing token generation events and listings now on PokerStarter as well as Uniswap. So this is that interoperability collab. I love seeing this compared to, we're an ETH killer and tribalism. Work together any day of the week. PancakeSwap, 400% gains. Daily DEX volume surpassed 90 million. Another example. Solana looking to share this wormhole technology. So this is a bidirectional bridge between Solana and other layer ones, starting with support for ETH, like I just mentioned. I didn't realize this was the actual name of it. So wormhole, very cool stuff. Terra and Solana. Terra, another project I really like. Theta is launching their first decentralized exchange, Theta Swap. So hey, just put swap in the name and it's going to be successful. Hop exchange is another one. These guys are allowing you to do like multiple hops over multiple change, using like roll-ups as well, being able to pay in tokens. Mirror, this is like a version of synthetics that's, I think it's on top of the Terra blockchain, is it? Or multiple blockchains. Terra Swap, hey, swap in the name. So yeah, powered by Terra. So Mirror, synthetic assets, another way to get exposure to stocks. And I think the big challenge here is going to come with regulators. So it's going to have who is the most private, who has a fully decentralized model that can't be stopped. Things like the secret network here, they're looking to get into the AMA space. I think it's going to be so important because, like we said with Ren, you need privacy to prevent front running when you can see everything on chain, and you want privacy from the markets. You know, you don't want the GameStops of the world and the big hedge funds seeing what you're doing and front running your order, and you don't want in the crypto space either. Sentiment have put out their report on the top 10 highest developing projects. They do this every month. Members, you guys get a discount on that research. In the past, these have been projects that have performed very well in the future, and hopefully every project on that list is one that you know about and one that we've covered for you. The DeFi Pulse Index, it's now up 5x since it bottomed. I think all DeFi coins and indexes have been on fire lately, but let's just be cautious. This is a great report, again, from Sentiment, token age consumed. This can mark temporary tops, or it can sometimes be a sign that the coins are moving in order to like do something like staking and push price up. But I would be cautious here, okay? Look, Chainlink, Kyber, 0x, these have had some monster runs in price, and now we're seeing a lot of those old dormant coins, just like we read about with Bitcoin and ETH, they're on the move. At a time when gas is super expensive, I love that Balancer have introduced a gas reimbursement program. They're trialing with a few pairs there, so head over and use Balancer. And wouldn't it be great if we had the old gas burn fee already in action here, because that is going to create a massive positive feedback loop when we start burning those gas fees on Ethereum. But guys, yes, awesome to see ETH at an all-time high. For the Ethereum network, we do have these active addresses growing at the same rate. So this does tell us that, hey, that's pretty healthy stuff. We're not quite seeing that with a lot of these DeFi coins, which I think are getting a little bit ahead of themselves. So Grayscale have reopened its Ethereum trust to investors. Just 7 days in, they've already added like 100,000 ETH, $180 million. The appetite there is nuts. Reddit has just hit 2 million subscribers following the GameStop controversy. So bringing in the retail investors, you know, they get angry at the brokers that are shutting them down. They get angry at the banks. They're angry at Wall Street. They come to crypto. Love it. I absolutely love where it's all going. Michael Saylor, he had his big conference last week. So there was like 1,200, 1,400 CEOs there. They manage $400 trillion, I think it was. Look, I think that Bitcoin, we'll talk about the TA in a second, but I think Bitcoin is setting up to be the flavor of the month. Elon Musk, not only obviously Doge, but he has come out and said that, yes, he is a Bitcoin supporter. The timing of all this, if you read the tweets and when he was offline, suggests that he might have gone to that conference, that maybe he or Tesla will put some Bitcoin on the balance sheet. Bill Miller's flagship fund might even buy Bitcoin now through GBTC. Exposure up to 15%. That would absolutely rattle people's cages. You know, the old 1%, 5% max for these, Wall Street types. 15%. I think Bitcoin goes to 100K this year if Bill Miller does that. There you go. Okay, so according to ARK Invest, Bitcoin hodlers are hodling longer and harder than ever. We've got 60% now of the supply that's held for more than a year. That is different to other bull markets. I'll keep saying it. We're not going to top as long as we've got the strong hands, diamond hands, as people are starting to call them. Until we're starting to see a constant trend. We've had a few little, rotations and a little bit of profit taking. That's all fine. But until we see constant large amounts of old coins, we're not going to top out. All right, so I touched on this. I won't get into it in too much detail, but this was the best mining show we've done. Go back and watch this and watch the sector. It's all time-stamped. When Will talks about what miners are doing and why they're doing it, with the hordes of coins that they've had and gathered for sometimes years, and what is going on with the hardware side of things. Again, that impacts by the macro that we just spoke about with the shortage of global chips. So hopefully you guys are watching the full episode of these Sunday videos and understanding all these pieces going together. Another part from the macro I just want to throw in here. This is the chart of DXY, which everyone used to be obsessed with, versus Bitcoin. So inverse correlation. Is it coming to an end? Because if the dollar's putting in this bottom, that would suggest that Bitcoin's putting in a top. Unless we get to my Goldilocks scenario where Bitcoin and the US dollar and gold are the three most attractive currencies on the planet, and they all extend their lead from all the other currencies. So plenty of exchanges have had to halt Ether withdrawals. Some exchanges will pay it for you. Some are getting a little bit tight and they're shutting down exchanges. Withdrawals. This is obviously killing the DEX space, but also hurting centralized exchanges as well. Just something to be aware of. Do you have your plan for what you're going to do to move things around when you want to take profits? A new report out is telling us that a lot of these old Ethereum killers, the devs are now leaving, and they're coming for DeFi and NFTs and some of these newer chains that have got the interoperability mindset and ethos rather than the killer ethos. So that's great to see as well. I touched on that before. Sam, if you're watching, SBF, let us know if you're worth 10 billion or not, and if you're putting that into DeFi to get a nice 10% annual yield on that. The GameStop saga, I think it's going to drive more and more people to exchanges like FTX, but ultimately, when the user experience is better, to the DeFis of the world, the synthetics, Mirror Protocol, anywhere where you can get exposure without having to go through Wall Street and brokers, cut out the middlemen, cut out the fees, but cut out the censorship. This was a story that did the rounds during the week. China could shut down Bitcoin for $7 billion a year. This is an absolute load of crap. You're not going to be able to get the chips. We literally just touched on that. You're not going to be able to get the hardware and then the power and then get away with it before someone notices and does something about it. So no, you can't attack Bitcoin for $7 billion. I touched on that one at the start. I'll throw it in there again. The Aussie that's paying off his mortgage with DeFi. Another example of mainstream media just getting on board. Galaxy Digital, Mike Novogratz is out there tooting the horns of getting more and more people into crypto. All these big funds are. This was DGM token. So I want to throw this in here as well. So this is an example of one that got shut down, so they say, by regulators, ceased operations. Whether or not it was an exit scam or a rug pull, but there's a happy medium. If you're going to go into the world of stocks, you better make sure that you're executing right, because either regulators are going to come for you, or there's scams in that out there, guys. So just please be so careful. And look, I think the big bullish narrative of this year is going to be Ethereum, but I think it's also going to be that D-Web theme that I've spoken about, and this is going to be the big driver. DeFi's time to shine after what has been happening in the censorship with GameStop. Okay, so let's get in and have a look at the charts. Let's have a look at Bitcoin on the weekly. Let's clear off all my clutter. That is a pretty good weekly close, a record weekly high close there. So look, we are being a little bit cautious of that double top. Let's have a look on the daily there as well. I'd love, just for safety's sake, for us to get above, 40,500 on a daily close. That would get me more bullish. The only thing I'd say is, even volume is pretty healthy there. Let's compare that to ETH. Still pretty good volume. Look, we never like these big wicks on the upper candle here, but hey, it's a record close. There's plenty of green there. And ETH, what I would say, tends to have more wicks to the upside that don't stop it from going higher compared to Bitcoin. So ETH Bitcoin ratio. Now this one did get very, very messy. That's not the prettiest of patterns. Hopefully it's just come back to retest that support and we're away again. But that is what I'm watching, as well as the Bitcoin dominance. Testing, let's just bring out this trend line for you. Testing this trend line. And we want to bounce here because I do think that fundamentally, after the conference and everything that's happening, Bitcoin could be setting up to steal the show. So if it loses this level, hey, it's time for alts to keep partying. But for me personally, when you look at these indexes, this is what has me cautious. When I see this, altcoin, the mid cap, the shitcoin index, the DeFi index in particular, when I see things like this that are going up hundreds of % in weeks, and then we read from sentiment that there's tokens on the move, old investors, old tokens are being sent to exchanges, it can mean there's a little bit of profit taking if there's the appetite there to meet it, the buying demand. But then I say to myself, well, when there's $100 gas fees, is there going to be big buying demand in the DeFi space for all these ETH coins? And I would say that it's probably not going to happen from retail. It would have to be whales scooping it up that don't care about paying those high prices, or an influx of users only to the centralized exchange. And then you've got to ask yourself, well, is the coin that I like on the centralized exchange, or is that only on Uniswap? So hopefully that's given you a little bit to think about. Please be cautious. This has been an enormous trade opportunity, guys, for us. But if you're not a trader, if you don't know what you're doing, don't get involved with these things. This can get messy very, very quickly. Maybe Doge has just put in that double top and we're about to, unwind. But don't ever invest based on emotion, okay? It is a guaranteed way to fail. So, look, guys, head over to nuggetsnews.com.au. Head over to the Collective Shift website. The links are all down below. Hope you guys have enjoyed that Sunday episode on a Monday. Smash that like button for me. Share this with friends and family. I'll talk to you again soon. Cheers.